After years of anticipation and rumor, the GR Corolla is finally here. We are going to talk about why this car is so significant and why it is so special, especially for enthusiasts. We were all a little disappointed when Toyota didn't bring the GR Yaris to North America. Japan got it, Europe got it, but we didn't. Well, the GR Corolla is coming here finally, and it's going to be available later this year as a 2023 model. And let me tell you, this is one unique car. The GR Yaris DNA is sprinkled liberally over the Corolla, but there are some differences. This is essentially a race car for the street. GR is the performance arm of Toyota, and the GR Corolla has been developed at Japanese race circuits like Fuji Speedway and Suzuka. But it's also been developed off-road and on dirt and snow with a Japanese champion rally driver. Let's start with the drivetrain. There's a lot to cover here. The drivetrain is essentially the same as the GR Yaris, or Yaris. It's the GR4 all-wheel drive, and yes, it is a manual transmission only. If you don't like that, there's other choices in the market. There's no CVT, there's no dual clutch, there's no automatic, just a gear shift and a clutch pedal as the motorsports gods intended. And if you're offended by this, well, it does have rev matching. The engine is a 1.6 liter. It's the G16E GTS, making 300 horsepower. And no, it's not a 4-cylinder, it has 3 cylinders only, and this is remarkable because in the European versions, the Yaris was getting about 260 to 270 horsepower depending on the country. It makes about the same horsepower per liter as the Bugatti Chiron and the Ford GT. It's about 188 horsepower per liter. That is remarkable out of a tiny little 3-cylinder engine. And it's got a 3-piece muffler. Hello, Civic Type R. It makes 273 pounds-feet of torque, but what's impressive is not just the power output numbers, but the way it makes the power, and that is going to speak to the heart of enthusiasts like me and you. Maximum power is 6,500 RPM, but the maximum torque comes on from 3,000 to 5,500. So you'll need to keep this engine spinning. And it's a single scroll turbo, which means it should be kind of peaky and have like an old school 80s, 90s vibe in terms of the power curve, just with a little bit more torque. So the single scroll turbo is integrated with the exhaust manifold. That helps for weight and also warm up efficiency. And this is just one of the elements that I think makes this car really special and really desirable. The next is the GR4 all-wheel drive system. This is developed with the GR World Rally team. And obviously it works off-road, but it works on track as well. And it has an adjustable bias, so you can adjust the front-rear split from 60-40, which Toyota says is what you're going to use for day-to-day use, to 30-70, 70 in the rear on winding roads and race circuits, and also 50-50 equal split for competition and track driving. And when you're in any of these modes, the torque will automatically adjust a little bit anyhow. And there's an optional front and rear Torsen LSD. I'll talk about that more in a second. I'll be making another video after this one. It's going to have a full walk around with the actual car in detail. I'm going to drop that as early as possible. Please subscribe if you want to stay tuned for that. Now, it's not just the powertrain that makes this car unique. It's the fact that it really doesn't compete with much else in the market. Sure, we've got the Subaru WRX, but the STI is not coming out for the current generation. That leaves us with the Honda Civic Type R, but wait, there's a problem. That is front-wheel drive only, so really, I think we're left with the Golf R. And that's a pretty different car. Let me explain. Yes, it has very similar power levels. It has a 4-cylinder engine, of course, and it makes a little over 300 horsepower, and it's also all-wheel drive, and it's also manual. But the big difference is this is a much more luxury-focused car, and obviously the Corolla is going to be based on a rally car. It's going to have that kind of performance and that kind of DNA built into it, whereas the Golf is going to be more of a street/track car. And this makes the GR Corolla very unique in the market. There's absolutely nothing vanilla about this car. This is not your dad's Camry. This is a cold brew splashed right in your face. And if you're thinking, oh, the humble roots, this is just a regular old Corolla that's tarted up a little bit, well, actually it is not. This is built at the Motomachi plant, the same plant where the Lexus LFA and also the GR Yaris are built. And this is built with a special hand-picked team, and there's a lot of manual assembly in this car. This actually takes far longer to build than a conventional car, and that means there's not gonna be so much of them. Now the styling, you're either gonna dig it or you're not. I think it looks like a little angry jelly bean on steroids, and it's got enough curves and flares for a 1970s high school reunion. Now it is based on the TNGA GAC architecture. The C stands for compact, and that's the same platform that we get the Prius and the CHR and other vehicles that we don't get in North America. And it has far more weld points than a normal Corolla, and this is for improved structural rigidity. And they also make use of extensive structural adhesive, which not only saves weight, but it actually adds rigidity as well, and it reduces noise a little bit too. Now the body is completely unique, and I've always had a problem with the WRXs, quite frankly. I don't like the styling of them that much personally. This is a different approach. This is not just some fender flares. The whole front of the car is unique. We've got functional aero ducts up front. We have functional hood vents, although you will need to get the Circuit Edition for that. I'll talk about that in just a moment. And the big focus here is on weight reduction with this vehicle. So the regular Corolla hatchback in the Apex trim, or the XSE, which is the top trim, it's about 3,150 pounds. This GR Corolla is 3,250 pounds, so it's only 100 pounds more. And they've added all-wheel drive and a bunch of other hardware. This is a significantly stronger chassis, so they're making extensive use of lightweight material. The hood is aluminum like the base car, but this gets aluminum doors too, so a big focus on weight reduction. I think it's a fairly impressive weight number. Now there are only two trim levels. There's Core, which is the base version, kind of an odd name, and then there's the Circuit version, and that gets a carbon fiber roof, and it also gets these functional vents on the hood with this power bulge. And most significantly, it comes with the front and rear Torsen differentials. This is obviously going to be the one to get, and this is a more limited version. Kind of a bummer. This is making me a little bit sad. This thing is going to be really hard to get. Now, in terms of styling, the rocker panels, the lower rocker panels, they are stamped with the GR4, so you know this thing means business. In the rear, we've got a special bumper cover, and we have a massive spoiler which improves downforce, and it doesn't look like it's going to impinge with the visibility very much either, because it's basically mounted on the roof. Toyota says this is the first dedicated GR car made specifically for the North American market, and this all started in 2007 with Akio Toyoda, who was not the CEO at the time. And this is at the Nürburgring, and he wanted to basically expand the company's racing activities. So they entered the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. They're actually using a couple of secondhand Altezas in the race, and they didn't win, but this basically cemented the beginning of GR. That is what we know today. So the GR Yaris is basically a rally car in street clothes, and the suspension is sort of where a lot of that magic happens. And so in the GR Corolla, we get McPherson struts up front, and we get a double wishbone rear. And of course this has bespoke dampers, springs, and sway bars. And the wheels are 18 inches. They're wrapped with 235/40/18 tires. These of course are summer tires, and you gotta have good brakes. So this has 14-inch rotors, 4-piston aluminum calipers up front, 2 in the rear. That's for weight savings. And I'm seeing this trend with aluminum calipers, and apparently they work pretty well. I've got them on my vehicle. And of course, this thing is very driftable. This was developed to work on both pavement and dirt. And a special car should get a special interior, right? So we've got a couple of things here. We've got a new 12.3-inch dash display. It's TFT, it's not LED. Apparently it's very bright. And what I really like, we have a classic pull handbrake. It doesn't have the electronic little brake with the button anymore. So, you can do more mad skids, So the seats have extra bolstering. In the Circuit Edition, you're going to get suede seats. Now the Core is going to get cloth, and they're both manual, so there's no power seats. That's to save weight. And you get a short throw shifter, and well, that's just about it. I guess you need to save a little bit of money somewhere. So the interior is unique, but it's not like super special. And this is really one of the most discussed, one of the most anticipated enthusiast cars in a long time, especially from Toyota. I think there's really nothing like it on the market. We already talked about that. I think it's kind of in a class of its own, and that makes it really special too. And let's talk about the price. Toyota hasn't released the price yet. and we don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be much closer to the release, probably in the fall or later in the year. So here's my educated guess. The WRX STI, we're talking 2021 because there is no new version, about $38,000 starting point. The Golf R, about $44,000. So my guess here is I think the Core will come in at probably $39,995. And the Circuit Edition, I think, is going to be about $4,000 or $5,000 more, and you get the carbon fiber roof, and you get the Torsen limited slip differentials front and rear too. Remember, you can order those on the Core also. Oh, and one more thing. They're not going to make a lot of these. Everything from the Motomachi plant is pretty limited production, especially from the sub-GR assembly line. If you want one, I would run down to your dealer right now. I'm going to have an in-depth walk around with the vehicle tomorrow, so please subscribe. My name is Eric. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.